Hello and welcome to another Deck Tech here on Chief MTG. So we recently received a request for an Esper tokens deck. You may have seen our black-white tokens deck and think, oh, Esper's mostly black-white. It's going to be the same. I guarantee you this is very different. So we'll start off with the most powerful cards in the deck, in theory at least. We play 2 copies of Torrential Gearhulk as the only creature this deck plays. So it has a lot of targets for its flashback ability. And we also play 4 Metallurgic Summonings. Now this is the tokens part of the deck. Metallurgic Summonings produces tokens when you cast an instant or sorcery. So it's naturally quite at home in an Esper control deck, which, as you'll see coming up, is pretty much what we fashioned. I think it's possibly a really good card, Metallurgic Summonings, in the right deck. It's a bit expensive, but it produces a lot of tokens, a reasonable size, depending on the cards you're playing. And also the second ability on Metallurgic Summonings of getting back all the instant or sorceries from your graveyard to your hand is just great. It's insanely good card draw. So yeah, I think it's a card that's worth building a deck around, and here we have. So let's go through the picks. So as I said, we only play 2 creatures in the deck, so I expect to see a lot of instants or sorceries from now on. We'll start with the basis of any blue control deck. We play 2 copies of Anticipate, just as card selection, helps you dig deeper into your deck, find those important cards for the late game. And we also play 3 copies of Negate. Control decks were very successful at the Pro Tour, so Negate seems like an auto-inclusion in any blue deck right now. Negate will always have a vast array of targets, especially while vehicles are in the format, so it's certainly easily main deckable right now. And it's also worth considering as well in this deck, you need to make your curve consistent, so that once you've played Metallurgic Summonings, you can either play a flurry of spells and get a flurry of tokens, or you can play a big 5-drop and get a 5/5 token. So Negate also fulfills curve considerations as well. Esper control decks historically have had the best combination of counter spells in blue and unconditional removal in black. So we're going to move on to our black removal spells now. We play 4 Grasp of Darkness as a great 2-drop. For me, it's on par with Harness Lightning. The flaw on this card is, it's always going to be a 4 toughness removal spell. It's not quite as good against Harness Lightning if you need to get rid of a 5-drop, but that's the price we pay. We also play 1 copy of Die Young. This is just another early removal spell in the deck. It's a sorcery speed, so it's nowhere near as good as Grasp of Darkness, really. This spot could have been taken, for example, by Deadweight, but it's worth noting Die Young is a sorcery, so therefore triggers Metallurgic Summonings. And we do have a few other ways to get energy, so it is a scalable removal spell. We also play 2 copies of Collective Brutality. Just an all-round good versatile card, this in a control deck. We can attack our opponent's hand and force them to get rid of an instant or sorcery, so we can effectively duress them. Or we can kill a creature, or if we really need to, we can give ourselves some life and take 2 off our opponent. So, control decks like versatility, and I think Collective Brutality is great in this deck. We talked about Unconditional Removal, and here we have some. We play 3 Murder and 2 Anguished Unmaking. Murder just gets rid of any creature apart from Emrakul or anything with Indestructible. So it's definitely worth playing some of in this deck. Yeah, it's not as good as other 3-drop removal in the past, like Hero's Downfall, because it can't get rid of Planeswalkers, but it's still a very good card. We also play 2 copies of Anguished Unmaking. Anguished Unmaking gets rid of any non-land permanent, so artifacts most notably. It's the best form of artifact removal, I think probably the only form of artifact removal actually we have in the main deck. So I think it's definitely worthwhile. Yes, there is a drawback of losing life, but I think we can carry the burden. More standard control technology here. We play 4 Glimmer of Genius as instant speed card draw, and also some energy to get our Die Young working a bit bigger. And we play 2 Summary Dismissal for those decks that are trying to play Emrakul, or other cards which come in and have triggered abilities like Avacyn, for example, or Elder Deep Fiend. And Summary Dismissal is also it's a 4-mana spell, as is Glimmer. They both trigger Metallurgic Summonings and give us a 4/4, so both quite worthwhile in that regard too. And no control deck would be complete without a sweeper. We have access to white, and the reason we're playing white probably is we're playing Fumigate. think it's the best sweep in the format right now, and it's such a swingy card that you can be so far behind, play Fumigate on turn 5, and be back in the game quite easily. So, yeah, definitely an easy 3 of. The land base for a 3-colour deck, it's still fairly simple. We play sets of Shambling Vent, Prairie Stream, Sunken Hollow, and Aether Hub. And we finish off the land base by playing 4 Evolving Wilds and 2 of each of our basics. Onto the sideboard, standard caveat applies of know your meta and sideboard appropriately. It's also, can't stress enough how important it is to get your meta right for control decks. Control decks work on you having the right answer to the relevant spell, so know your meta and think about what cards you can bring in from the sideboard for against that meta. In a vacuum, the sideboard I would go with would look something like this. We play 3 copies of Gideon and 1 copy of Dovin Barn. Planeswalkers are good in long drawn out matches like control mirrors or control against mid-range, and Gideon has proven himself to be a great grindy card. I think Dovin Barn's a great addition to a control deck. It's also useful against sort of aggressive to mid-range matchups as well, so I think he's very useful as a one-of in the board. Talking of specific answers to specific threats, we have access to 2 Ceremonious Rejection, 2 Dispel, 1 Summary Dismissal as extra counter spells. Ceremonious Rejection is great against vehicles. It's also good against decks playing Void Shatter as a counter spell, it's worth noting. Summary Dismissal, again, against the Eldrazi or triggered abilities, and Dispel in control mirrors and decks with very important instants. We also have access to 2 Lost Legacy in the sideboard. Lost Legacy is great against any linear combo deck. For example, against Aetherworks Marvel, if you play Lost Legacy, you can't take the Aetherworks Marvel, but you can take out their Eldrazi. So they're playing a deck which has no targets. Against Aetherflux Reservoir decks, you can take out Paradoxical Outcome, so they can't bounce all their cards and replay them. That's effectively leaving them with very few victory conditions. And to round off the sideboard, we have 3 Thing in the Ice. At the Pro Tour, we saw how powerful it was to transform from a creatureless deck into a deck playing key creatures. Thing in the Ice does that very well. It works nicely with our instants and sorceries, gives us another victory condition other than Metallurgic Summonings or Torrential Gearhulk for that matter. It also does well to replace Metallurgic Summonings in games where you expect that to be killed through Enchantment, Hay, or you're just going to struggle to get that out. I think Thing in the Ice is actually quite good in Control Mirror, especially if you expect your opponent to have taken out most of their creature removal. So that's our deck tech. What do you think of our take of Esper tokens? Let us know in the comment section below. If you like the video and you like the deck, then please don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Your support means a lot. You can also talk to us and follow us on Twitter and Facebook. We have an Instagram as well. They are all at CheapAssMTG, so you should be able to find us there. And I hope you'll join us for future videos. See you then.